the years, countless stories have incorporated the pretty equals good and ugly equals bad fairy tale trope. In simple terms, this particular trope equates beauty with goodness and evil with ugliness. We see this trope played out in stories such as Disney's Tangled, where Princess Rapunzel, who is stunning and compassionate, has long blonde hair and light green eyes. Her enemy, Mother Gothel, is an old lady with gray hair and saggy, wrinkled skin. In the Little Mermaid film, Ursula, the Wicked Sea Witch, is portrayed as a monstrous octopus with dark purple skin and a fixed, sinister facial expression. Ariel, on the other hand, is described as being an empathetic and sincere character who has bright eyes, long red hair, and a charming smile. The authors of these tales use the physical attributes of the protagonists and villains to serve as a representation of their inner nature, giving the good characters attractive features, and the bad ones widely detested characteristics. It is imperative to call attention to the types of features that are considered attractive and consequently good. Princesses like Rapunzel and Ariel were designed with fair skin, long straight hair, and light-colored eyes. Through these tales, as well as the literature we will review today, it is evident that there is a recurring pattern of authors and directors who choose to showcase Eurocentric traits in a rather high esteem and refrain from uplifting any other attributes or qualities. Associating beauty with goodness and ugliness with negativity can teach readers to value virtue over vanity. However, it can adversely promote the acceptance of one beauty standard, which results in bias and mistreatment towards all who fail to meet the established criteria. In the story of The Ugly Duckling, written by Stories to Grow By, the mama duck gives birth to 5 yellow ducklings and 1 brown one. When describing her first 5 ducks, she states, "Look at all of you, you're so cute." However, when the brown duck is born, the response from his siblings is, "What is that? He cannot be one of us." Another duckling says, "I have never seen such an ugly duckling." Not only was his brown duckling darker than the others, but he was also larger and walked differently than his siblings. The author's choice to name the ugly duckling as one with a darker complexion, wider framework, and funny wobble speaks to how society views people of color, those that are larger in size, and people with disabilities as less than worthy. This falls in line with the point made by psychologist Mark Travers in Forbes magazine. He states, "A 2022 study also found that if an individual is perceived to be less attractive and less intelligent looking, they also seem less human to an onlooker." This data provided by Mark Travers highlights how people who are not considered conventionally attractive by society's definition are in fact treated differently. In the article, Beauty, a Fairy Tale in a Culture, author Sigler B. writes, "While it seems acceptable to create villains that have ugly physical features to match their hideous personalities, it constructs an unacceptable belief in society. People born with abnormal traits are bad and should be considered outcasts." Essentially, because of the way atypical characters are demonstrated in fairy tales, people who are born with disabilities or disproportionate facial features are made to feel inadequate by society. In the end of the story, the ugly duckling transforms into a swan. The author writes, "He was no longer an ugly gray bird that wobbled when it rocked. He had become a swan." The ugly duckling was finally considered a beautiful bird. But what about him had become so beautiful? Was it his new snow-white fur, or his slender neck and straight feet? Is it coincidental that these are the very same attributes that society praises and finds socially acceptable? The Ugly Duckling promotes the idea of a single beauty standard by applauding lighter skin tones, thinner shapes, and normal bodies, while condemning the contrary. In Beauty and the Beast by Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont, the main character Beauty lives with her father and 3 older sisters. They are all described as being very handsome, but Beauty is described as the most handsome of them all. Beaumont states, "The youngest, as she was handsome, was also better than her sisters. The 2 eldest had a great deal of pride because they were rich." Upon first glance, a reader might presume that she was better than her sisters because of her looks, but as you dive further into the story, Beauty's looks are rarely mentioned ever again. As the story goes on, the primary focus is on her character and moral goodness. The author writes, "Beauty outshone her sisters in her person as well as her mind, and admired her humility and industry, but above all, her humility and patience, for her sisters not only left her all the work of the house to do, but insulted her every moment. This piece of evidence exhibits how it was Beauty's inner charm that made her the most handsome of them all. In Why Can't the Princess Be Ugly?, Faith Moore acknowledges that the princess's beauty doesn't tell us that a person must be beautiful in order to be good. It's the opposite. Her inner goodness is represented by her outer beauty. Moore's point is illustrated through Beauty's three sisters. Although they were labeled as being physically attractive, their actions showed that they were prideful, superficial, and cruel, which in turn made them less handsome than their more kind and humble sister. Beaumont uses the characterization of Beauty's siblings to demonstrate how one can lack virtuous qualities despite being physically beautiful. This speaks back to the common fairy tale trope that claims that attractiveness and goodness must coexist. Qualities such as patience and humility were associated with goodness and beauty in this story. In doing so, the author uses the trope to encourage readers to focus on the inward qualities so that they may be like Beauty and stand out against other outwardly beautiful girls. In the final analysis, the fairy tale trope, pretty and handsome equals good and ugly equals bad, can be described as a double-edged sword. Being taught to associate specific physical attributes with being desirable, while others are strongly despised, paves the way for discrimination and internal bias to form within the minds of the audience. In the same manner, we've also seen how this trope can be used to highlight how a pretty and handsome individual does not always equate to being a good person, as there are countless externally beautiful people with rather ugly hearts. So the final question I leave you with today is,